Lone marauder kicking down doors is a movie. The golden horde of starving refugees stumbling out of the city is a fantasy. The people who will hunt your house after a real collapse are already in your phone contacts. They've already been inside your kitchen. They already know what you have. I've spent 20 years conducting area assessments in places where the lights went out and didn't come back on. What I'm about to give you is a framework pulled from FM 3-24 counterinsurgency doctrine, FM 2-22.3 human intelligence operations, and after-action documentation from Sarajevo, Argentina, Venezuela, and post-Katrina New Orleans. There are 5 categories of people who will come for your supplies. One of them is the soccer coach down the street, and he becomes the most dangerous man in your zip code on day 22. Oh, I'll explain exactly why. By the end of this video, you'll be able to identify all 500 profiles by name and behavioral signature. You'll understand which operational security failures paint a target on your roof, and you'll know which single discipline matters more than any rifle you own. Because here's the difference. Civilians stockpile gear. Operators map the human terrain. Let's start with the one nobody sees coming because he's already inside the wire. Hunter 1. The talkative neighbor. This is your highest yield, lowest risk threat, and you've probably already armed him with everything he needs. Not a weapon, information. FM 2-22.3, the Army's Human Intelligence Collector Operations Manual, identifies this profile as the casual source, someone who provides intelligence without realizing they're being collected on. Except after a collapse, they realize it, and they trade what they know for safety, food, or favor. Here's how it works. You bought a generator last summer. You mentioned it over the fence. You showed your neighbor the chest freezer in the garage when he helped you move a couch. Your wife told his wife about the Costco run where you loaded up on canned goods. None of that felt like a security breach. All of it was. Every single detail is a targeting data point. The generator means you have fuel. The freezer means you have protein. The Costco haul means you have depth of supply. One conversation equals one entry on a target list. That's not metaphor. That's exactly how it played out in Sarajevo. Documented accounts from the siege show that households raided in the first weeks had one thing in common. At least one neighbor knew specifics about their preparations, not rumors, specifics. The talkative neighbor doesn't kick your door down. He tells someone else what's behind it. He trades your inventory for his family's safety when a crew comes asking who on this block has food. He's not evil, he's terrified, and terrified people spend the only currency they have, information about you. The civilian approach is to proudly tour friends and family through the pantry. Show off the water storage, demonstrate the solar setup. That's not preparedness. That's a target briefing delivered to an audience you don't control. The trained approach is compartmentalization. Nobody sees the full picture. Not your neighbor, not your brother. Not your best friend. You control information the same way you control ammunition, round by round. Need to know. If someone doesn't need operational detail to execute a specific task, they don't get operational detail. Period. The countermeasure here isn't a lock or a weapon. It's your mouth. Every word you've spoken about your supplies in the last 5 years is a round you can't take back. Starting today, the discipline is silence. You don't discuss quantities, you don't discuss locations, you don't discuss capability. If someone asks whether you're a prepper, you say you've been meaning to start but haven't gotten around to it. That sentence is a force field. I've put together a full guide on threat assessment and human terrain mapping that covers everything you need to know. First link in the description. Hunter 2, the Unbadged Officer. This is former local law enforcement, corrections officers, and court security personnel operating outside chain of command after the paychecks stop. Pay attention to why this category is different from every threat you've imagined. These aren't strangers. They're trained. They know room clearing. They know use of force continuums. They know how to control people through command presence before a single shot is fired. And here's the part that should freeze you. In most jurisdictions, law enforcement personnel have access to concealed carry permit databases. They know which houses on your street have registered firearms. They know your name and your address. That information doesn't disappear when the badge comes off. Civilians assume the badge equals the man, that the uniform guarantees integrity. Operators understand that the bell curve of human character holds whether or not the uniform is on. Most officers are decent people. Some are not. And the ones who are not have training, communication networks, body armor, and intelligence access that no civilian crew can match. This isn't theory. Post-Katrina New Orleans documented armed groups of former officers conducting unauthorized confiscations within 5 days. 5 days, not 5 weeks. The organizational infrastructure was already in place. The radios still worked. The chain of command simply shifted from legal authority to survival authority. The same pattern repeated when Iraqi police were disbanded. The same pattern shows up in every Latin American collapse where security forces fragment. The countermeasure for Hunter 2 is an early warning network. You need to know who's moving through your area before they arrive at your door. That means relationships with neighbors positioned on approach routes. It means communication that doesn't depend on cell towers. And it means understanding that a 3 to 7 person team with tactical training will not announce itself the way a hungry teenager breaking a window does. They'll move with discipline. They'll control angles. They'll use verbal commands designed to freeze you in place. Your response protocol has to be established before you hear the first command, not after. If you're waiting for the sound of breaking glass, you've already lost the initiative against this category. The window to establish observation posts and communication plans is right now. Not day 1 of a crisis. Now, Hunter 3. The pre-existing crew. This is the threat every prepper forum spends 90% of its time on, and they still get it wrong. They imagine roving gangs forming spontaneously out of chaos. That's not how it works. The crews that will dominate your region after a collapse are already operational. Right now, today. The DEA National Drug Threat Assessment confirms active cartel affiliates, outlaw motorcycle clubs, and street gang networks in all 50 states, not border states, all 50. These organizations already have leadership structures, supply chains, communication protocols, territory maps, and enforcement capability. They don't need to build anything after a collapse. They redirect. Venezuelan colectivos are the clearest case study. These were neighborhood political organizations with government backing. When the economy collapsed, they transitioned into armed extortion networks within months. Not years. Months. The organizational skeleton was already in place. They simply changed what they were collecting. Instead of votes, they collected food, medicine, and fuel. At gunpoint. The civilian fixation on imaginary roving armies blinds you to the network that's already mapped within 50 miles of your house. Operators map existing networks before those networks map them. That means knowing which organizations operate in your county. It means understanding their territory boundaries. It means recognizing their identifying markers, vehicles, and congregation points. This isn't paranoia. This is the area assessment that every Special Forces team conducts before operating in any environment. FM 324 calls it understanding the human terrain. You live in human terrain right now. The question is whether you've assessed it. The countermeasure against Hunter 3 is regional intelligence gathered while the lights are still on. You have access to local crime maps, DEA reports, and news archives right now. You can identify which areas within a 50-mile radius have active gang presence. You can map likely expansion corridors based on highway access and population density. You can determine whether your location sits inside, adjacent to, or outside existing territorial boundaries. That assessment takes an afternoon. It informs every other decision you make about fortification, caching, and evacuation routing. Without it, you're planning blind. Now pay attention. This is the part that reframes everything you've heard so far and everything that comes after. FM 3-24, the Counterinsurgency Field Manual, states a principle that most preppers have never encountered. The surrounding population is the decisive terrain, not the hilltop, not the bunker, not the weapon. The people. Every conflict in the last 50 years confirms it. The force that understands, maps, and integrates with the surrounding population wins. The force that isolates itself gets overrun. That principle applies directly to your street, your subdivision, your rural road. The lone wolf fantasy is the single most dangerous idea in the prepper community. Because it tells you to cut yourself off from the only terrain that matters, people. Every hunter profile I've described exploits the same set of signature failures: smoke from cooking, light visible at night, sound from a generator, the smell of food in a neighborhood where everyone else is hungry, electromagnetic signatures from radios and devices, and movement patterns that differ from the baseline. One visible garden plus cooking smoke equals confirmed supplies. A second-story window down the street provides the aerial reconnaissance. You don't need a drone. Binoculars from a neighbor's attic do the job. The signature failure list is your operational security audit. Smoke, light, sound, smell, generator hum, visible garden, movement. Every one of those is a broadcast telling every hunter category exactly where to look. Controlling those signatures isn't optional. It's the single discipline that matters more than any rifle you own, because a rifle responds to a threat that's already at your door. Signature discipline prevents the threat from identifying your door in the first place. Hunter 4. The family caravan. This is the one nobody wants to talk about because it doesn't come with a weapon. It comes with a phone call. Your brother-in-law calls from 3 states away. His family, his wife's parents, her sister's kids, 14 people, they're coming to your place because you're the one who prepared. They're already driving. This isn't a hypothetical. FEMA's own disaster planning assumptions include secondary migration modeling. When urban infrastructure fails, population redistribution follows family networks. People move toward the relative who has land, the cousin who has a well, the sibling who mentioned a stockpile. Historical data from the Great Depression shows rural household sizes swelling by 20 to 40% as displaced family members consolidated. The pattern is documented. It's predictable. And it will destroy your supply timeline. Here's the math. Your pantry is sized for 4 people for 90 days. That's 360 person days of food. 14 people consume that same supply in 25 days. You didn't lose 2 months of runway. You lost your survival margin. The family caravan is a slow-motion siege from inside the wire. No shots fired, no confrontation, just a steady burn rate that drains everything you've stored. Civilians treat family arrival as a moral question. Should I turn them away? That's the wrong framework. Operators treat it as a logistics problem with a calculated calorie ledger. The answer isn't cruelty. It's a sealed family agreement made before the crisis. You contact every family member likely to migrate toward you. You establish expectations in writing. You assign pre-crisis responsibilities. Store this, carry this, bring these skills, show up with this much supply or don't show up at all. Without that agreement, you face an impossible choice under maximum stress with children crying in your driveway. The countermeasure is a conversation you have this month. Not a rifle, not a lock. A conversation, and a spreadsheet that calculates how many person days of food you actually control. The family caravan also creates a secondary vulnerability. More people means more noise, more light, more cooking smoke, more movement, more electromagnetic signature, and more mouths that talk. 14 people cannot maintain the signature discipline that 4 people can. Your operational security degrades in direct proportion to your head count. Every additional person is a multiplier on every signature failure in the list. Hunter 5. The soccer coach. This is the curiosity loop payoff. This is the one I told you about at the beginning. And this is the most dangerous category on this list. Not because of training, not because of weapons, because of legitimacy. The Hungry Patrol forms around day 21. Here's the science. The Minnesota Starvation Experiment, conducted by Ansel Keys at the University of Minnesota from 1944 to 1945, took 36 healthy male volunteers and reduced their caloric intake to approximately 1,500 calories per day. Within weeks, the psychological deterioration was measurable. Obsessive food fixation, emotional instability, erosion of moral reasoning, social bonds broke down, self-governance collapsed. Men who entered the study as disciplined, principled volunteers became unrecognizable. 1,500 calories per day. That's the threshold, and in a real collapse, most households without stored food will drop below that line within 3 weeks. The rule of 3 tells you why. 3 minutes without air. 3 hours without shelter in extreme conditions. 3 days without water. 3 weeks without food. Day 21 is when caloric intake collapses for the unprepared majority. Now here's what happens. The soccer coach, the HOA president, the volunteer fire chief, the youth pastor. These are organizers. They're trusted community figures. They know how to mobilize people. They've been running phone trees, organizing events, and managing groups for years. When their families hit the hunger threshold, they don't sit in their kitchens and starve quietly. They organize, they form a patrol, and they go house to house. But here's what makes them the most dangerous. They don't see themselves as criminals. They see themselves as community leaders doing what's necessary. The pastor frames it as sharing. The HOA president frames it as community survival. The coach frames it as protecting the kids. They operate with perceived moral authority. And when 12 hungry families stand behind one organizer, that's one rifle aimed at your driveway, backed by the social legitimacy of the entire neighborhood. You can't shoot the soccer coach standing on your porch with 6 families behind him asking you to share. Not because you lack the capability, because the social cost eliminates your ability to remain in that community afterward. He wins before the conversation starts. That's the threat profile nobody prepares for. The same moral inflection documented in the Minnesota experiment appeared in Sarajevo. It appeared in the Warsaw Ghetto. It appeared in the Donner Party. When caloric intake drops below the survival threshold, moral reasoning doesn't decline gradually. It drops off a cliff. Good people become capable of things they couldn't have imagined 4 weeks earlier. The soccer coach isn't your enemy. He's a predictable product of human biology under starvation stress. And he's in every neighborhood in the country. Civilians plan for criminals. Operators plan for the soccer coach. The countermeasure is not a fortified position. It's community integration before the crisis. You need to be inside the organizational structure that will inevitably form, not outside it, not a target of it, inside it. That means building relationships now, contributing visibly to neighborhood functions, establishing yourself as a resource and a leader before someone else fills that role and points the group at your front door. The patrol crosses the moral threshold around day 21. Your window to integrate closes long before that. It closes the moment your neighbors realize you prepared and they didn't. The day you start building community relationships is the day you begin neutralizing Hunter 5. Every day you wait, the countermeasure gets weaker. FM 3-24 confirms it. The population is the decisive terrain. You cannot fortify your way out of being surrounded by desperate people who know where you live. You survive by being essential to the community structure, not by being the target it's organized against. Let me pull this together. 5 Hunter profiles. The talkative neighbor trades your information. The unbadged officer brings tactical training and intelligence access. The pre-existing crew redirects organized criminal capability. The family caravan drains your supplies from inside the wire. The hungry patrol leverages community legitimacy to override your defenses. Every single one of them exploits the same failures: smoke, light, sound, smell, movement, and conversation. The discipline that stops all 5 isn't marksmanship, it's signature management. Control what your position broadcasts and you become invisible to every category on this list. I've written up a complete guide on operational security and area assessment that you can print and reference when there's no signal. First link below. The question you need to answer before tomorrow morning is this. If you conducted an honest assessment of your street right now, which of these 5 hunters have you already armed with everything they need?